So I arrived at the 2019 PRI show, Indianapolis, Indiana. It's mid-December. It's not as cold as it was the previous years, but it's still a little chilly out here, which kind of like from coming from Florida. Anyway, this year I'm going to go check out some transmissions again. I haven't done a transmission video at PRI since 2014, I believe. So hopefully there'll be some interesting things here, and let's go and see what we can find. Thanks. So I've been walking around at the show, and I'm actually finding that there's some pretty new transmissions available and some new technology, so I want you guys to go check it out with me.
Has in the past been called the Jasper 4-speed.
Okay.
Jasper.
And obviously the name is right there.
Yeah, Jasper engines and transmissions, which I have an affiliation with. I had the largest distributor in the country with them for about 30 years.
So you were distributing Jasper transmissions?
That's right. Because they are probably the world's largest engine manufacturer domestically. And so that's why it became the Jasper 4-speed, and we were partners with this.
Do they have anything to do with the Jasper manufacturing, by the way, the rebuilding?
No, no.
Is a Jasper engines and
in Jasper, Indiana, just 2 hours south of here.
Right. Nothing to do with it.
No, well, no, it does. That they are the same people.
No, they are. Okay.
Yeah,
Because
so
they're a very big engine rebuilder and transmission rebuilder.
Yeah, they're probably the world's
Yeah,
largest.
the world's largest.
So I had a private distributor. Mm-hmm. And so that became the Jasper 4-speed. It was actually manufactured in Jasper at their facility. And so the success story is it became the winningest transmission since 2006 in the Cup Series. We're up to about 172 wins. Mm-hmm. We have 92 wins out of the last 5 seasons, and we've won 3 out of the last 5 championships with this transmission.
Amazing, amazing, very impressive. And this is the inside of it, basically. This is the whole inside of that transmission, basically.
Right. So the unique part about this transmission from other transmissions is the floating input shaft. It's a patent pending or a patented input shaft that floats, and it doesn't allow the any influence of the front end, whether it's a clutch or the bell housing, to influence how the gears run inside the transmission.
So it's basically the input is splined into, like, say, a section here that's held by the bearing then.
That's correct.
And then it just floats in there.
Right. You can see it wobble right here.
Right. But the thing is, you hear all this talk about sometimes things being so accurate, but you still put this in there so it is for the level of inaccuracy that might cause wear on the gears. Is that it?
No. Most of the Cup teams do not run a transmission mount, so it just hangs off the end of the engine. Okay. So on the track, the bell housing literally
it could flex.
Will flex, and so it doesn't allow anything on the flex of the bell housing to influence how the gears run internally.
Oh, I did not know that much flex would exist. It's something like that. So you would start seeing the main drive sections over here chew up, in other words.
They don't chew, but it makes them weak and it makes them inefficient when they're running in a side.
Sure, you would get edge loading and obviously
all of these gears
pitting and things like that.
That's correct. All these gears are ground after heat treat. Mm-hmm. These are all Gleason gears. Gleason's a 175-year-old company, and they do everything you see here is done by Gleason. Mm-hmm. And they're ground down to 1/millionth of an inch. So you don't want these things to float in any direction but where they like to float at.
Right.
At higher RPM.
That's fantastic. And if you have pumps, do they run off like these reverse gears, basically?
Our pump actually runs off of this idler gear right here.
Okay.
So it'll bolt on right here and then run. Actually, it bolts on in the front and it runs off the idler gear. Got it. So it doesn't run engine RPM, but it'll run whatever the reduction is from the headset. Usually it's 28 to 21, which is about a 1.28% reduction. And that's what the oil pump runs at. So one thing I noticed too is that everybody seems to have their own version of a faceplate, and some have more of an angle, some have less of an angle. Do you guys
say, okay, this works best for us, and they know, like with engineering, because you can walk around this whole show and everybody's got a faceplate.
Right.
But what happens is they have a faceplate, but it's different. Everybody's got that little different angle and whatever. But this is probably, in terms of faceplates, one of the most aggressive angles I've seen, so it really kind of will pull it in and stay there.
So the angle on the faceplate standard angle is 7 degrees. We do vary that depending on driver feel. We can vary from 7 degrees all the way down to 2 degrees. 3 degrees is generally the norm on the road courses. But because we don't ship that much, we'd rather be aggressive like on the road course, or not, I'm sorry, on the oval, when it's in high gear like that. I don't worry about that thing popping out of gear when it's on and off throttle. So we get real aggressive with the dogs on. So you're saying that if it's less of an angle, it's a lot easier to shift? Yes. Okay. Yep. Got it. But it's a lot easier to possibly pop out of gear too. Got it. So that's why we have this aggressive angle on there. It's actually 7 degree angle. Well, thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Have a good one, man. Okay. So Jericho is back in town. I haven't seen the Jericho transmissions here in years, and I want to go check out what they have. So I'm with Dominic and George from Jericho Transmissions, and you were showing me this one yesterday. And this is this new low-profile transmission you have?
Yes. It's our low-profile 3-speed built for the asphalt late models.
So it's a low-profile 3-speed built for, you said asphalt and late models?
Yeah.
And so obviously the requirement is that it has to be low-profile, otherwise you rip the bottom of the transmission out, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's built to bulge right up to a quartermaster bell housing.
Okay.
They're low-profile quartermaster bell housing.
This looks like it's got a floating input shaft or something?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So why do you need to have a floating one? Because of just vibrations and flexing and?
Well, part of that, and then if the bell housing is not correctly or properly aligned,
right,
it would need that would kind of compensate for it just a little bit.
But aren't engine builders supposed to properly align bell housings?
They are, but sometimes they
get a little lazy, right?
Could be off, yes.
I know in building transmissions for myself, I've run into that where we've got units back and the pilot needles are chewed up, and you see that the inputs are pitted and edge loaded, and I would say like your bell housing's out, you know. I mean the main shaft will get destroyed because the needles will cock inside of it, and yeah, that's what typically happens on it. So maybe, you know, they're never going to do it on street transmissions, but they probably should, you know, it would save a lot like that. It's pretty simple to do actually. Is this one of the inputs that are?
No,
like,
that's a solid input.
That's a solid input like that.
Yeah.
Well, why is there so much of a spline on this, like this long? Is it something else fit on top of that? The gear goes onto it? And it's held on with just the bearing and the snap ring, right?
Snap ring.
You're right. Okay.
You got it.
I haven't built a Jericho in a long time, so
Yes, so high gear would go in this
in the splined area.
Splined area right here, and then we'd put it in a case with front bearing and all in there.
I remember that your dog rings are very distinct, that this was your design. I remember that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Like that. Oops.
All right.
It's okay? All right. And this is a 2-speed?
This is 2-speed cutaway, so everybody can see what's inside. And on our transmission here on this 2-speed, actually it's high and a low gear and reverse. And reverse doesn't turn till you actually engage reverse.
Right, so
you got less rotating mass.
Right, and less horsepower losses.
Yes, sir.
Right. What is the weight of this whole thing? Is this aluminum or magnesium case?
Magnesium. It probably, with the shifter now, weighs about 52 pounds.
Amazing, amazing. And I see all the different shifter locations here and on the side, so they can pretty much do what they want to do here.
Yes, sir.
So will I be able to buy parts from you guys to build them now?
Of course.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Yes.
And this is also, I guess, a single rail transmission too.
That is our top center shifter.
Is that a requirement now in classes? Like,
no, not necessarily.
Because I don't know anything about classes, you know, but I know like I've seen shifters go from the side to the middle and then single rail.
Right. It's all about the clearance.
And it's just clearances and just...
Right.
Yes, sir.
A lot of NASCARs series have went to the center shift.
They have them in the center now,
Yeah.
like that. Interesting.
Yes, sir. So all them tunnels, they just keep getting smaller and smaller.
And what's on that side over there?
That side over there is our 5-speed and our regular 3-speed.
This is more drag racing?
Yeah, this is more drag racing and land speed record.
So, yeah, I could see how these are shaped. So basically, as one comes off, one releases. Is that basically
Yep,
it?
That's correct.
You got it.
Like that. So they're ramped specifically for one direction only, basically,
Yes.
going so straight. So you've got, I guess if you want to engage reverse, is that reverse here? You have that?
Reverse would be
Back there, and then this acts as like a slider for first gear?
First reverse, yes.
Right, I see. Wow. What a piece of engineering in here.
Well, we're proud of it.
So I see you have to, this is amazing about machining is that you can do these fine little nuances now, you know what I mean, and do these things and get the desired angles that you want to get. You know, this is amazing stuff. Look how big these gears are. And did the inputs float on these too?
Yep.
You don't?
That one doesn't.
No. What is like typically the horsepower rating of these types of transmissions?
Well, on our 5 speeds, it's 1,000 or less on that.
1,000 or less?
Yeah, that would limit it on 1,000. But you got to take into consideration, the weight of the car. The
Sure,
setup,
axles and everything, tires and grip.
rolls.
And this is your 3-speed race box?
Yep. So this is just the regular 3-speed. And you can see the size difference and
Right.
everything else.
Amazing stuff. That's great. George and Dom, thank you so much.
problem.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Thank you.
So I'm at the Hollinger booth, and they got this wild transaxle for an S5000 Opel. It's an open wheeler. It's a class in Australia, but you just have to look at this real engineering piece of art. It's amazing looking. So check it out. Look at your little hydraulics here, and it looks obviously a floating input again. That seems to be the new thing here. Obviously an oil pump. This goes to your axles. And on the other side, you can see all the control arms and the adjustments for all your driveline angles or whatever you have to do. Look at this billet aluminum work here. Isn't that amazing? What's really funny is the amount of technology and the ability for people to just machine all this cool stuff now and envision these things. The way the shock systems are set up, all combined on this whole unit. Wonderful, wonderful. It's from Hollinger. Hollinger is an Australian company. They make a wide variety of gearboxes. I've actually featured some of these transmissions in my first book. Thank you. So Dodson Motorsports is out of Auckland, New Zealand, and this is some of the upgrades they make for supercars. They've got this Lamborghini gear set, which probably gets fitted into the transaxle. They make a bunch of different clutch systems for the McLarens, Honda NSXs. And look at this. Is this how big the gearbox is?
It's a bit bigger than that. There's
No
still
kidding.
Yeah, there's another diff off the back. So it's got a drop gear at the back,
Uh-huh.
and then the pinion and the crown wheel sit out the back here, so it comes to about here.
Wow.
It's,
Well, it's a transaxle.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. So it's the whole weight is probably 240 pound.
What is like the engine is in the back on those cars? Okay, I didn't know that. I was
Yeah,
uh,
and between the clutch and the engine is a carbon shaft.
got it. And is this the whole dual clutch system is right here?
Yep, that's the full clutch. And there's the exploded version of it there. So that's what's inside that.
Oh. And is this a dry clutch system or a wet clutch?
Yeah, it's wet.
It's a wet clutch system. So on these dual clutch transmissions, I'm just curious, like, how do they actually shift? Are the people manually shifting them, or?
No, that's all done by electronics. So you can manual or you can run it in auto mode. So it will pre-select the gear. Mm-hmm. That's the whole idea of the dual clutch, is that like when you put it into drive, it'll pick first and second, and it'll use one clutch to take off, and then it swaps the clutch over. So then it'll use the second gear.
What is actually shifting them? It's a sequential barrel that is rotating around?
No,
or is
it's
it?
all done electronically. Electronics, so solenoids and hydraulics.
Huh. Amazing. Kind of scary though, don't you think? Like, if it accidentally puts it in 2 gears at once.
No,
Well, it can't do that because of the interlocks and everything, but...
It can. You can actually pick 2 gears, but it has fail safes for that. Mm-hmm. So it'll go into limp mode. So when it picks 2 gears and it can't move the other one, it will go into
fail-safe mode.
Yeah, so it'll only use one clutch only.
That is something else. I just don't... I can't comprehend this because I'm working with such small transmissions, and I see something like this so complex. It's just really an engineering work of art on top of that. You know, the way you have to come up with the whole concept and figure out like gears, and I can't imagine the expense alone just to come up with the tooling for this stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's years and years of development right there.
Wow. Thanks a lot. Okay. So I'm at Emco.
Yes.
And I remember this company because you worked on transaxles for, 24-hour Le Mans cars or something like that? And I remember reading a story that you guys had this awesome, like, big block Chevy-powered dyno, which you still have.
We still have.
Right.
Yep.
You don't use it much, obviously,
We
now.
don't use it much anymore. We have a spin rig now, electronic spin rig.
But I remember that
Takes
was a very big thing. Like, nobody had anything like that, and I always remembered that. But this gentleman was telling me about this Mazda Motorsports transmission that you manufacture, and this looks amazing. I mean, look at the quality of this, the casting and the detail work, and even this is just too cool. And this is for a rotary engine, goes in the front?
This is a rotary engine or a Miata. Either one. The 5-speed grassroots transmission. It replaces the old PBS transmission that a lot of Mazda racers have used for years. And it can be adapted into any type of a small car, front engine, rear wheel drive.
So this is a full synchronized transmission?
Those gears are out of the MX-5 Cup cars. The helical cut gears were the synchronizers.
Right. A certain classification requires them? Is that what happens?
Yes, for the new MX-5 Cup cars.
I don't even know what MX-5 Cup car is, but it's a class?
Miata. Yeah, it's a class. Battery tender. It's a MX-5 Cup. 4-cylinder, rear-wheel drive. That's their latest and greatest race car.
Okay.
Yep.
And so the classification specifies it got to be synchronized in helical gears.
Yeah.
Got it.
Well, this fits in more like the SCCA category.
Okay, now I understand.
These are actually not part of this gearbox.
These
is
are.
dog. Yeah.
Look at these beautiful dog rings. These look like jewels, like that.
We like that. We like jewels.
Yeah. Well, what I'm curious about is it's like has nothing to do with the function of it. It's just how it looks. Like the what is this? Is this like a blasted thing or a heat treating finish? Did you get this?
That's the heat treat finish.
So the heat treat finish comes out with the gray, and then you add this little touch of machining to put this.
Yeah, that's how you have to true it up. I mean, it has to be finished ground, and these angles are all indexed here.
Right.
To a certain.
So the heat treating gives it this kind of grayish matte finish,
yeah.
and you come in, and when you machine it, you got this beautiful luster to it, and the shine. And even over here, obviously, you come in and you face
Touches
this thing
off on that. Yep.
Right. Oh, I see. Look at that.
But
And that's what you end up with, a beautiful looking piece.
These are all indexed, along with these,
Right.
to tenths of thousandths.
Right.
That all has to be indexed exactly. So when that grab and engages, it doesn't engage just one or two or three of them.
It has to engage all of them.
It has to engage all of them exactly equal, or you're going to break or it's going to knock it.
Break the ring or fall it out of gear or something like that. Fantastic. And what's about that unit over there? He was telling me about this one here. This particular unit is what's kind of cool because people can see the sequential action on the barrels and how it all works. What is controlling this? Is this a ratchet type shifter?
Yes, it is a ratchet type mechanism.
Mm-hmm. And this is for what kind of vehicle?
So this particular application was designed for Trans Am TA class, running 850, 900 horsepower. And it goes, this stack fits into that housing right there.
Okay. And then there's your ratchet sequential shifter.
And your whole unit weighs 76 pounds.
This weighs 76 pounds.
Fully loaded in the car, ready to go. And it's capable of taking that much horsepower.
Amazing. And this is like where your indicator goes or something like that?
That would be your gear indicator.
Right, your gear indicator, some sort of rotary encoder.
Yeah, rotary potentiometer.
Right, okay. And I think this here is you could set your bias for your shifter, for your feel.
A centering spring, which brings everything back to center. So when you shift it, it comes back. It's got an adjustable spring. If you choose to paddle shift this gearbox, this unit comes off, and a pneumatic actuator
will go in place, and you can paddle shift it then.
Yes.
Fantastic. So I could see this is how you're ratcheting the sequential piece. So this piece here, just like you explained to people here, this is the mechanism externally that is basically rotating the barrel over here.
Correct.
And if you notice that the shift forks are on these pegs that are machined that will simply track the sliders in and out on the forks. And by having a sequential box, it's relatively impossible to pull two gears at once because it's an interlock system, and it's very hard to actually downshift into the wrong gear because you have to go through all the gears to get to that point. You know, that's what I explained, that one of the dangers of having any type of dog ring box, and I've learned my lesson building them, is that when you have, like say, a 5-speed with a double H pattern, the person can accidentally go from 5th to 2nd.
Yes.
And then a very aggressive driver pulls that stick through that gate, and boom, you know, you either blow the engine or blow the transmission or both, right?
Right.
So by having a sequential system, it's impossible to do that. You have to, and then with the indicators over here, you're going to obviously have that LED readout on your dash.
Yep.
It's going to show you what to do, you know. Fantastic.
It can also allow you to have no lift upshifts, so where you can get into 25 to 35 millisecond shift times. Plus, you don't have to come off the throttle. So if you look at the data, and you can see real gain on track time, because the RPMs virtually drop only the amount of split between the gear ratios. There's no off the throttle and back on.
Got it.
That's the real advantage of a sequential gearbox.
Cool. And obviously you put all these little holes in there to make it a little bit lighter and whatever. I know I've seen some F1 stuff where their barrels were so small and they were all made out of titanium, and you know, they get every little weight saving they can out of these things. But this is impressive that this whole thing is that weight, you know, considering the centers and the size of the gears and everything. So it's very beautiful. One thing is you see the beautiful fillets that they have in here to avoid stress rises, that everything is a nice, smooth, tapered angle into it like that. It's beautiful work. Thank you so much, Larry. I appreciate it. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
You bet.
You know, it's not that light.
Oh, it's like 35 pounds.
35 pounds? Wow. So here you have a Xtrac 265, a gear set that can be retrofitted into the transmission with dog ring gears, straight cut gears, I guess with custom ratios that you need for your racing application. What's kind of neat about it is they incorporated a cuff for separation of the cluster. So these cuffs kind of float, but they kind of keep the gears together. And you're seeing that a lot in transmissions now. They just kind of have a floating cuff that simply has bearings inside of it that allows you to keep the gear train attached together, thus cuffed together, so it doesn't spread apart in areas that normally would have no support. They designed it so you can actually put this little piece in here now, and it works well. Pretty slick setup. Now that's a long shaft. So Xtrac is known for a lot of the F1 type transmissions, but super high quality out of the UK. And just look at the quality of the workmanship in these transmissions. It's a sequential system, obviously. You can see it ratcheting probably down there and the whole bit. It's probably a linkage that goes through here. Pump system on this side. Typically, what kind of horsepower are they talking about in these types of cars?
500 to 600.
Okay, so 500, 600 horsepower range.
And we could handle more. I mean, so we've got different gear packages.
But this is an amazing compact unit
Very
with an oil
compact.
pump built into it and everything.
Yeah.
It's very slick design.
Very compact, small. I mean, again, it can go in just about any front engine configuration. There, actually, when we do the transverse.
Well, I'm
mode-
sure obviously the way they got this set up over here, it allows you to adapt into many applications.
Exactly.
And
Well,
whatever.
the other variant again is in a transverse mounted engine. We can do an all-wheel drive variant. So we have
Amazing.
another output flash coming out.
So kind of modular in a way, the way you've got it set up.
And it's been great. So we picking pieces, and that's kind of our approach. You'll see a lot of similar bits and pieces on several boxes.
Thank you. That was very cool.
No worries. No worries.
And it's crowded today. Look at these little two-speed transmissions here. Is that cool? Nice and compact. How awesome is this? It's a Bert made in Canada. Gorgeous piece. So I'm with Will from Centerforce, and he's going to tell me about the new Centerforce SST solid street twin. This is a really great looking clutch, and the reason why I'm showing you guys this is because there's a lot of really good features on it that I think you'd like. First being that unsprung hub,
yeah.
dual disc,
yes.
so you get it with the flywheel.
Yeah, light and steel flywheel.
But what I'm really liking about it is the way the floater setup works, and kind of show us how it goes together here.
Sure. So obviously we have the first disc that would come into play. Nice. All of our flywheels and everything is going to come with all ARP hardware.
Right.
Now our floater design is a little different in the fact that it's still a positive drive floater. It's the strongest drive out there. But if you look at these little pins right here, what we designed is an anti-rattle for the floater. So it locks in just like this. And what it does is it isolates that floater rattle that you would normally hear, with this type of design. But you can see it still floats on here.
Right.
So,
well, what I always
sitting
liked
on the
about
disc.
these types of floaters with pins is that I always believe that the strap type floaters tend to hang the discs up, and you end up with some poor clutch release.
Yeah, and over a period of time with those, you have to go back and readjust the tension because you want everything to work in a series when you have a drive strap style floater. With these, everything floats.
Right.
So we don't have to rely on that because obviously the second disc would come on top of there and then the pressure plate would go on there.
Beautiful.
Being on an angle once it falls down.
And you can get this for LS engines and conventional.
Conventional, early Ford.
Two-piece main.
Two-piece main, Chevy, Ford.
Got
all of it. And the nice part about the whole thing is this is our entry level twin. And they're going to retail for just under $1,000.
Amazing. And of course, people are going to ask me what's your horsepower about.
So we rate these at up to 925.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. Have a nice apply. It's easy driving on the street, and on top of that, it fits your budget.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Will.
welcome.
I appreciate it.
Stopping by.
Thank you. So look at the way they have these on these types of engines. They get the power steering pump off of the crank in the back through the bell housing. So Mark,
Morning, Paul.
how are you?
Great.
So tell me about that new case you got over there.
Oh, that's a beauty.
Everybody's checking it out. What do we got here? Looks low profile, huh?
Yeah, super low profile. It fits on a quartermaster or Tilton bell housing. It's got the billet rollerized tail housing, full needle roller bearing for the slip yoke. It's going to be the first top shift, super low ground clearance transmission for super late models. It's going to be a great transmission.
How heavy is this thing when it's all together? What do you think?
It's gonna
Pretty
be
lightweight.
Pretty lightweight. It's going to be right around 56 pounds.
56 pounds.
Yeah.
Well, one thing for sure is the shipping's going to be a lot cheaper.
Exactly.
Very nice. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Paul.
So you're part of you're Rick, and you're part of what company?
RTS.
You're part of RTS.
I own RTS.
You are on RTS.
Yes, exactly.
I'm thinking it stands for your name. Does it?
No, it's Race Tech Services.
Okay.
Yeah. I was trying to come up with something with my name, but I'm like, no,
Right.
I'm not going to do that.
So you guys are responsible for this beautiful machine work.
We are, yes.
Right.
SS Manufacturing does all the machining in-house. We start with a 67-pound block of aluminum, and we end up with an 8-pound case.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Amazing.
Yeah, it's actually a work of art. And we clear anodize everything so that there is no corrosion or anything down the road for the clients.
So what are these transmissions primarily used for?
We are actually using them for every form of racing that's out there now, from street and strip racing guys to Formula Drift, Time Attack.
Okay.
Trans Am American Series actually has done really well for us this year. They've won 7 races with this transmission and a championship. So it's been an awesome, basically, past 10 months. We debuted this here at PRI last year. It was our world debut. And since then, we've already sold 51 units. Thank God, 0 failures. And we've had anywhere from 600 some horsepower to the latest 2 weeks ago was 2,541 horsepower.
Amazing.
Yeah.
These are all sequential boxes.
Sequential boxes. This box has been able to go from your standard G-Force style, NASCAR style dog box mount up, upright position, and we're actually able to design it to where we can flip it over to 90 degrees.
For ground clearance,
yes.
like that.
And we can pick up with a 0 crank center line to ground at 3.7 inches for a lot of the time attack. And honestly, Trans Am has been the biggest advocate for this box that's been rolled over. And then we do a Hewland front cover for them because it is a modular design. We can make a front cover fit any bell housing.
So you got a built-in pump system here as well?
We sure do. The pump system is very similar to a dry sump. It picks up off the bottom.
Got
On
it.
the rolled over version, we have the pump obviously up in the air here, but we are picking up off the bottom. We have a dry sump screen in here, courtesy of ARE Dry Sumps, who I've been with for many years. They designed the pump for both boxes. And this also actually is a true dry sump where it picks up right off the bottom with a dry sump screen in it.
Got it.
So
Okay.
it's a very nice application. You don't have to pull the box apart in between sessions at the track or races. You're able to just pull this pump off, check your screens for dirt or debris, and go back together.
This is your rotary encoder for the readout?
It sure is, yeah.
Right.
And that goes.
Does it go on your dash?
It goes on our
Right,
dash. We
right.
did a billet dash to match.
That's
obviously
pretty.
match the
That's
gearbox.
gorgeous looking, right?
And the box comes complete with a shifter handle. This is actually our Gen 2. You can actually loosen this up and rotate it where you want it in the car for perfect driver comfort.
And what's the button for?
This is a reverse lockout or neutral lockout, so you can downshift and never, especially for the road racers, never go into neutral.
Right.
You have
So
to
because it's a switch, what is it, some sort of electric solenoid that blocks out?
We have an electric solenoid right here which screws right in the back.
And so that basically pins and blocks out
It
the
sure does.
reverse gate.
Our rotary wheel in here is a neutral lockout in it, so you have to obviously release it to go into everything.
Got it. Very cool, very
very
cool,
nice
like
setup.
that. Beautiful. Thanks a lot, Rick. I really appreciate it.
An honor to be
right.
videoed by you guys.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. So here I am back at the shop. You know, that was a great show. It's 3 days of high energy, seeing all this cool stuff, and then it's like over. And sometimes it can be really depressing because I got to get back to the grind here and do job after job after job. So I really love going to the PRI show. For your information, I've been going since 1995, 96, somewhere around there. It was always an inspiration for me to come up with new ideas and new products. So if you're into building or you just want to get inspired to create in the automotive industry, it's a great show to go to, and it's a great show to meet people in the industry. So if you're looking for a job, it's possible you may be able to find one there and get into the contacts that you need to do to, get your resume out there. But while I was at the show, I found this book called The ABCs for Future Race Car Drivers. It's a pretty funny book, and I picked it up because I think it's really important that you kind of give the younger generations an idea, like, A is for axle and B is for battery and so forth. But since I'm an author and I was kind of looking over this book, and I wish they would have kind of, maybe consulted me a little bit. So there's some changes I'm going to need to make in this ABC book. All right, the first thing, gaskets have to go. I mean, that's got to be gears. And what do we got here? Yeah, spark plug. That's too common of a thing. This needs to be shifter. And then, of course, not everybody has a turbo, but they all have a transmission. Much better. And if you want to get that book, links are in the description. Thanks for watching. See you soon.